The Smokin Word. The Smokin Word. The Smokin Word. What up? What up? What up? The Smokin Word. The Smokin Word. What's up, everybody? We are back. The Smokin Word podcast, episode number 7, I think. I always forget what number we at. But again, we want to thank everybody who's been tuning in on the SoundCloud and on YouTube. Where right now they're trying to hook up the iTunes. Yeah. So we'll look out for the iTunes coming up soon, and we got a lot of other stuff dropping. So look out for that. And we are back today. Freddy's back on the mic. We're coming at you from Long Beach. We're in the back of Dirty Mix, fucking, what do you call this? Record store. Record store headquarters. What's the name?
Hub.
The Hub. We're in the Hub. But come check it out if you're in Long Beach. And
yeah, it's a cool shop, man.
we have a very special guest today. We had to make this happen since we were here. He was going to be here anyway. We can't get rid of him.
Either Snoop Dogg?
Yeah, it was either Snoop or our next guest. And I ain't going to even give him the introduction. I'm going to let Freddy give him the introduction because Freddy could probably set it up better. So I'll start with coming to you live from fucking the Minnesota.
Is the Wildcard, Matt Henderson.
Talk to your friend right there.
What's up, buddy?
Chill.
How you doing?
Chill. Good to be here.
All right. Good to see you.
Where are we?
You look young as ever.
What
Feeling old, though, bro. Feeling old.
He's got Benjamin Button's disease going on. This guy's getting younger every time I see him, aging the other way, man.
We're coming at you. Right now we're in Long Beach, like we said. We're in the kind of the middle of a little short California, West Coast run with Strife, and since we were playing here, we knew Maddie. We were going to be seeing. We knew we were going to be seeing Maddie here, and we figured we'd take advantage and talk a little shit with him. If you guys don't know who he is, he ain't nobody. No, but he's an old school OG on the guitar and the New York hardcore scene, and he played for a lot of bands. We're going to have him give you a little quick recap. I know it already, but just in case you don't know who he is, Maddie, let the people out there know who you are, where you come from, and all that bullshit.
Well, I mean, I know you know. I've always kind of considered myself really a composer more than... Nah, you know what I am? I'm a guy who grew up just loving punk rock and hardcore, and was lucky enough to join one of my all-time favorite bands, one of the bands that made, hardcore that exciting for me. So,
but let everybody know for where you were born, where you came up, what state.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was born in Madison, Wisconsin.
Right.
And but
a lot of white people there.
Cheese. There are.
a lot of
cheese. Close to Milwaukee, which is a lot of beer.
Right. Right.
And then, moved to Minnesota at a real young age, and that's basically where I grew up. And, then...
that's where you got into punk and all that stuff. What were you into first, punk? What was your into the hardcore stuff? Not metal. It was more punk than anything.
Music. To music?
Well, music was a lot of stuff.
It's kind of a...
it's weird, because we know Maddie's family, man, so we know Maddie,
The introduction to music for me was through my father. He always he always had a really nice stereo system in the house.
Nice.
He always had a really big record collection,
a lot of albums, a lot of
and
vinyls.
Would just play a lot of good stuff in the house. Especially for music at that time. But he going through college, he was into the rock, the metal of its era, like Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple,
the heavy stuff of that era.
Yeah, he did like the heavier stuff of that era, as well as other stuff too.
Right.
And then for me, probably around 4 or 5 years old, I somehow just latched onto the Beatles, which I think a lot of kids at my age probably did.
Sure.
And from there, went straight to Kiss.
Wow.
And Kiss was
That's right, you're a Kiss guy. I forgot that.
Well, shit.
You like kissing guys, yeah. You kiss guys. He's a kiss guy.
A Kiss guy.
But that's another podcast. Yo, what up? You know who you are out there.
Well, yeah, but 1977, dudes are like breathing fire. They look like superheroes. They're playing like rock and roll, and you're like, you know. But the thing about it is, a lot of people will be like, "Yo, you like that band? Those dudes are, people used to say they're faggots. They're this, they're that."
I never looked at it that way. I always thought it was cool the way they looked. No. But I just never got in. It was before my time, I guess. So
it was kind of like being punk rock. People,
right? Yeah. It was very punk rock.
You were kind of outcast, even though they had a lot of popularity.
Right.
So I do, when I look back, I feel like I was kind of already in that mode. Like
rebellious kind of.
And my parents, too, were kind of hippie-ish. Yeah. My mother used to go to, like, big anti-war protests back in the day when it was, like, relevant.
Right.
When we were still coming out of Vietnam and all that stuff.
Wow.
So, and she'd be very vocal in the house.
That's real punk rock.
Yeah.
That is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's actually trying to, my mother back in the day before it was a trend would, like, I remember one time we had fruit in the house, and I said, "How come we don't have grapes?" And she said, "I'm not buying grapes." I'm like, "Why not?" She says, "Because I don't support the way the workers are treated."
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
And me as a kid, I'm like, I just want fucking grapes, but again, that was what she really believed versus like just being on some bandwagon. So I always kind of was hip to speaking your mind and being a little bit, you didn't worry about
thinking things through, looking at it from different perspectives,
and not caring if it wasn't cool or popular.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
not conforming.
Yep. And that's to me. So when I first started hearing about punk rock, it kind of made sense.
Oh yeah.
And I liked the music. The Sex Pistols were the first band that I really listened to, punk rock, and I mean, I play their first record in my car a lot. My boys love it.
That's great.
But let me ask you this: how did you find out about the Sex Pistols? Who put you on to that?
It's always somebody.
Yeah, so my dad had a subscription to Rolling Stone, which in the earlier days was like, it looked like the Village Voice. You know how it's got it's like a paper.
It's like a paper. Yeah, like it's actually yeah.
So, and they were on the cover one year in 1977.
That's crazy.
And
that's pretty big.
Yeah.
And I just kind of bugged out on it. But it wasn't until years later that I really figured out. Oh, you know how it was, too? I was a fan of Joan Jett.
Nice.
And there was some radio interview with her, and I recorded it, and they played songs that she liked that was an inspiration to her. They played God Save the Queen. And I was like, that's what they sound like? Because that song's pretty good. And I was like, that's... Because, the stories I heard, like, Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious, they blow their nose on people on the stage and they spit and, all that. But that's the type of shit that, that's not really true. That was, just, goofy rumors.
Right.
And then I heard the music. It's like, that's dope.
Nice.
So.
And then what? And then
I hate that band, by the way.
Do you really? Have you actually listened to the record?
No, I don't want to say hate. I'm joking. I get it. But there's a lot of bands I hate, and that's just never been a punk. And I was never a big punk guy.
Well, and you know what it is?
You know what I mean?
It's like some music either translates to you or it doesn't.
And I'm just being an asshole right now by saying there's other bands that I hate more, like the Ramones. But we're gonna get into that later.
I gotta admit, I'm not a Ramones fan.
Thank you.
I'm really not.
Thank you. And listen,
I get it. I give them props for being pioneers, and setting it off.
I give all the props.
I never owned any music.
They're the originals. I wouldn't be doing what I do. Blah, blah, blah. I understand.
It just doesn't speak to me.
I
give them respect, but I don't enjoy the music.
Well, anyway, I give them this much. They weren't as goofy. They weren't as goofy as the Ramones, and that's what I didn't like, the goofiness of that stuff.
No, they weren't. They sound a little rough around the edges and kind of,
Even if they were considered being like commercial for the real punk dudes at the time, because some old punk dudes at the time probably talk shit on Sex Pistols. There's always somebody who's real. Everybody's real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but when's the first time you got a lick of American hardcore?
So as I started getting a little older and starting like probably just getting into high school and meeting other people who, I could tell
we're into like
back in those days. You were punk rock, especially like
you stood out
in the Midwest. Yeah, you stood out, and it was not fun.
Yeah,
I used to have dudes like biker type dudes, grown men.
Right.
And I was always like a skinny kind of little kid, very kind of timid. I wasn't, wasn't a real force to be reckoned with, you know what I mean? But I had like a crazy ass mohawk or big spikes or some shit, and these dudes would want to fucking murder me. And I'd be like, I mean, they want to. Then they tell me, we're gonna fucking kill you, you fucking punk rocker. Let's fuck him in the ass. Just like jailhouse dudes getting like,
we're
like little kids.
We're real grimy about it.
Yeah, and so
how old are you? What, 15, 14,
15?
Jesus Christ, man.
And so, but by that time, there was still punk rock, right? Because like GBH, Discharge.
Right.
But then you knew what hardcore was.
Which was harder, the harder stuff.
Yeah, which I always loved.
GBH, respect
that's
to
why
GBH.
I never really liked Oi as much, because Oi was kind of bouncy to me. I like it more now.
I loved Oi. I loved Oi, but I never liked punk rock. So it's weird. But I know what you mean.
But you like GBH?
No, GBH is
Discharge.
Different. But those were like almost hardcore
GBH
bands.
was like the king of
like the real
British punk.
But the dirty punk.
Right.
And I like that, and that was Discharge, which ended up becoming what the American bands liked. Kind of.
But so it was one just big mix. Well, and plus two, back in those days, you'd probably try to buy any record that was put out, because it's like you felt like you're part of this movement, and like, oh, this band, I don't know, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys,
right?
What I say, Negative Approach, Minor Threat, those
are the bands.
I just missed. By the time I just started listening to Minor Threat, they had just
being in
up.
that circle of people, you started to pick up on what was happening with the American hardcore stuff, the early stuff, Negative Approach, Minor Threat, blah blah blah,
and Agnostic Front.
Agnostic Front, of course.
Victim in Pain. I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but there was a time where New York hardcore wasn't like
a known thing.
No, it really wasn't. It was. I
remember that time.
Agnostic Front, Victim in Pain was just another kick-ass record in the collection of all the other records we listened to, and we happen to know they're from New York. You look at
that's what they were representing. That's who they were
picture.
Representing, that faction, but that faction wasn't established.
Well, I think it was there.
Yeah,
but we didn't know anything about it. Right?
It was. I
mean, globally, it wasn't established.
Not at all.
Back then, they were hardcore bands from New York. It wasn't New York hardcore bands.
Exactly. You knew about New York because of Maximum Rock and Roll,
right?
And because they
talk shit about it.
Talk shit.
Yeah.
And then Agnostic Front being, that band that put out Victim in Pain, and
controversial shit being said.
You
blah,
look
blah,
at
blah.
that original Victim in Pain record with the gatefold and that picture on the inside is fucking hard as hell, bro.
Brutal.
And so you're like, yo, these dudes are, they're the real thing. They're crazy.
Yeah.
But again, like we're saying, it was just another punk band that put out a great record. It was not like, oh, I'm into New York hardcore.
Right.
It wasn't until a little bit later that, probably 2 years after that, because AF never made it to the Twin Cities early on.
No.
As a matter of fact, never played the Twin Cities until I joined
until Blind Approach. Yeah. Right?
No, until I was in Agnostic Front. Never played the Twin Cities.
I thought you met them before that.
I did.
Okay, but not in
not in the Twin.
Not in the Twin Cities.
Nah, because that's just it. So eventually, I started playing in a local band.
Right.
We're just friends.
Yeah.
Which I think is really a big part of it too. Right. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to be this amazing band or whatever.
So that was your first band, right? So
we're just kids that enjoyed the music and played.
Yeah.
But we wound up getting decent enough where we were like, every big band that would come through, we'd play. We'd open up for them.
Right.
What was the name of the band?
Blind Approach.
Blind Approach. That was the band I got before.
Let everybody out there know. So your first band was called Blind Approach.
Yeah.
All right, go look that up, kids, and check out. He got eBay shirts for sale. It's under Hoya Roc at eBay. But that's his first band. He got 100. Nah, you don't got too many bands. But all right, that's your first band.
No, actually not.
Nah, not really.
No,
not really.
Oh. He's not like Craig. Yeah, Craig was like in every New York hardcore band ever.
He was a band hoe.
Yeah, band slut. Yeah. Maddie's only been in 3 bands, right?
Yeah, technically.
Now you have other projects.
So now
So Blind Approach is you get together with some guys.
Neighborhood guys. We grew up
in your age.
Chip.
What up, Chip? Guys in your age group that were into like similar stuff, and then
70-year-old guy,
and you decided to go the hardcore route because that was the stuff you were leaning towards.
That was a time where hardcore was really getting exciting because you had Metallica,
right,
putting out like Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. And it's like, yo. And then you'd see these dudes with long hair wearing a Misfits t-shirt or a Discharge or GBH.
Or even an AF shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they was like, well, shit, this is amazing. You know, it was a lot of fun. I remember when those records came out, and I was as a guitar player, I'm starting to play a new style that really we all fucking take for granted today. I mean, I'm going back over 25 years, right?
Yeah.
But before that, there was a time where hardcore had no metal influence. I mean, I remember seeing the Cro-Mags for the first time, and I mean, they sounded like a metal band to me, but dope. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like
groove and
a drummer that sounded professional, wasn't falling all over the place. The guitars were in tune and they were tight. They sounded like a pro band that a lot of hardcore bands always, you know, up to that point sounded real sloppy and kind of crazy. And so, you know, it was a fun time where this crossover, that's what it was, right? Metal crossover. Even Stormtroopers of Death. I love that record when it came out, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to Billy Milano.
Yeah, shout out to Billy.
But rewind real quick. You're known for playing the guitar.
Yeah.
What made you pick up the guitar, and when did you pick up the guitar?
Playing Matt Henderson, man. This guy's a legend, man. We're like, hey, he's been in a couple of bands. Let's talk about it.
No, but let people out there know, because you're known for your guitar playing.
Yeah.
When did you start playing guitar? Why did you start playing guitar?
Yep.
And what was your first guitar?
Well, I started playing the drums. I had
that's right.
I had an uncle who actually went to Berklee College of Music. He didn't graduate. He was there for a couple semesters. But you know, I knew that I had one of my dad's brothers. You know, went to Boston to go to this for music, and he had this drum kit. And every time I'd go visit my grandma and it'd be there, I'd sit down and just kind of make noise with it. And then eventually my parents bought me like this toy drum kit, and you know, and then eventually I got a real.
What age was that? Would you say?
I got a real kind of like Bobby Brady drum kit when I was like 6 years old.
Nice,
right? And I used to turn Kiss records up real loud and just drum to it. And eventually, you know, I started to kind of be okay,
get a beat going.
Yeah, and then sound like a real drummer. Nice. And I was pretty good. I probably played till I was about 10, and then Van Halen came out. And I knew this kid who had an electric guitar, and I used to convince him all the time because I wanted to play. Yeah. I wanted to play music, and I said, "Look, you got that guitar, I got drums. Let's just start making noise." And he would do it, but it was never really all that much for him. He'd get bored with it real quick. I'd be like, "Nah, come on, let's try to make up more music." And he couldn't play the guitar for shit.
Right.
And then at the school we were at, we knew this guy who was technically he's a saxophone player in like local R&B bands, but he'd also play guitar, and he was just hanging out as our music teacher. This school I went to is pretty crazy. St. Paul Open School.
Wait, what's that? Open School.
Their slogan was "Freedom is responsibility."
So you guys did whatever the fuck.
It was a mess, bro. It was like a hippie idea.
Yeah,
and it was supposed to be really like, you know, there were no grades.
And
you called the teachers by their first names.
Wow.
And it was supposed to be.
That's cool. It's kind of cool.
I wish I was white for once in my life. Okay, now.
So the idea is cool.
Yeah.
But what happens is you get all these kids together and they just run amok. Bro, the shit that went on in that school.
Crazy.
And I mean, my parents would let me go there for years.
Wow.
There's no grades, bro. There's no grades. You get evaluations.
No wonder you graduated.
Yeah, no wonder you graduated. How the fuck this guy graduated?
And plus, it started to become like a dumping ground. Like all the trouble kids that got kicked out of every other school
because there was an alternative.
There was no. Yeah. There's the only school that couldn't turn them away.
Yeah.
So.
You can do anything in there, you'll be all right.
So this guy was our music teacher. I forgot why I got into that, but he was the music teacher there. And I remember telling my friend who played the guitar, I said, "Look, if you don't want to learn no more, give me a guitar."
Yeah,
because this guy I know he can teach, and this guy used to be able to play any song on a record. Like I'd bring a record in, and he'd listen to it, and all of a sudden he'd start playing it.
Wow, so he was a real music guy.
And he would teach me. Yeah. So I'm like, holy shit. You know, now I'm learning like songs I'm hearing on record.
Right.
And then when Van Halen came out, I'm like,
that's it.
Yeah.
It was on for you.
Changed guitar playing for, you know, that was like a historical event.
Yeah. So you're saying kind of that you like Eddie Van Halen a little bit.
I mean, the biggest influence for me as a guitar player, next to James Hetfield, probably.
Wow.
Like on the rhythm side.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, you can't, how could you, like when you listen to old Blind Approach riffs and stuff, clearly we were like a third Metallica, a third Agnostic Front,
and a third Cro-Mags,
and third probably, well, Cro-Mags slash
the Go-Go's.
You know what AF era we really sounded like was Liberty and Justice.
Yeah. Ah, nice. Yeah. Nice. So tell us. Let's fast forward. That's great. No, that's great. That's a great foundation that you have there. And you know, touching on what you were talking about before with your dad, that's you know, obviously these days it's different. You know, like that. I was trying to tell, you know, talking to my wife the other day about that kind of stuff. Like, man, I miss like vinyls and like putting records on and like hearing that crackling sound, and then like that's how I grew up too. Like, I got into music same way because of my family. Yeah. All different types, from Latin music to hardcore.
Yeah.
And like, you know, man, those, you know, I miss those days of like, that was like a pastime for me. That was like, sit there and, you know.
Well, so not only listen to it, but you had something to hold and look at.
Yeah, you read all the lyrics, you look at the pictures, it was like, look at this crazy cover, you know.
And it was before the internet where that was all you had, really. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
the info had to be on the record.
And it was a little bit more mysterious back then. You're like, you know, you only had like one picture of the band, and you know, you never really, you know exactly what they look like because it's just one picture. And so now you got this like real simple image in your head of what they look like. And shit, now you got the internet where, you know, you see people taking a shit or whatever. You know, catch them anywhere. It takes the mystery out of it completely.
Yeah. So before you were saying, so you got to see the Cro-Mags. Agnostic never made it over there.
The first real band I saw was like Exploited and Black Flag, and you know, I mean, I'd seen bands, and then
So you're going to shows. You're in a band. You're playing around.
Were shows solo, or is pop bringing you? Like, well, or is it like what age are you?
Well, we were lucky that they were all age. Okay, yeah. There were all age shows going down. But my dad would take me because that same club would have First Avenue. Yeah. You know,
that's Prince's club, right?
Yeah.
So so you're playing around with it. How does it work? How do you get the call from AF?
I was just gonna say.
How did you meet them? And because they had to know you met them before they asked you to play, right?
Yeah.
So you got to play with them, right?
Yep. So, like I was saying, every band that would come through, every national band, we'd open for. And
Cro-Mags?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Would you say that they were the first hardcore band that impressed you? Like made a big impression on you as far as like, because you said, they were more professional than most. And, and they had a certain, mystique and a certain swagger to them,
Totally. I went to see GBH that day.
Yeah.
And I knew the Cro-Mags by name because of that Phil Donahue show. Right. So
the well-known show where
Phil Donahue was a talk show. Yeah. That was on in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. And they had an episode in the 80s talking about New York hardcore.
New York hardcore. Some guy had written for the New York magazine or something.
Right.
Yeah. And interviewed a lot of people.
Isn't it crazy to think that it
and see, back
then, TV then in that time period? Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't know what they sounded like, but I remember, like Harley and John being really kind of strong presence during that interview. And, Harley even gave a shout out for his band, like after Phil Donahue handed the mic to him.
Of course he did.
And then he pulled it away, and then Harley said, "Oh wait, 1 second." Tapped his shoulder, said, "By the way, I play bass for a band called the Cro-Mags," and and everyone started laughing. And so now I know who the Cro-Mags are, but I don't know what they sound like.
Right.
And I walked in, and they were already like 2 songs into their set because that show was probably sold out, and they used to have. I remember. For some reason, the opening band would go on before they let people walk, before everyone was actually fully into the club.
Right.
And I walked in, and these dudes they looked larger than life. I mean, no band for me at that point had made just a real big impression on.
Yeah. And I think hardcore live in general makes a different kind of impression than other things you see.
It does, but everything up to that had been a little bit more just kind of like skinny, sweaty guys, like kind of just thrashing around. You know, it was more like.
What was the Cro-Mag lineup when you saw them?
It was the full Age of Quarrel lineup. Right. It was John, Harley, Doug, Mackie, and Paris.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doug wasn't on Age of Quarrel.
Yeah. He wasn't on the demo, maybe. Doug Holland was on Age of Quarrel, guaranteed.
No, he wasn't.
Guaranteed.
No,
guaranteed.
He was. How he ain't in the? Oh, you're right. I remember the picture now.
Yeah. Guaranteed.
You're right.
Yeah. And he was a guy. Well, so then we found out that I already knew they're from New York, but now we're starting to kind of put things together.
Now New York
it's like you got knocked
now you're
front.
curious about
you got
New
this
York.
other band, the Cro-Mags, right? And believe it or not, a band shortly after that came through that were also New York, repping New York, was Underdog.
Yeah.
Like early. I can't remember who they were opening for.
Yeah.
But we're Underdog from New York. It's like real, like it was like, oh shit, that's cool. But okay, so how did I meet them? Just from meeting. I mean, we knew, Chip. You
got to remind people that the scenes were smaller then.
That's right.
Too.
That's right.
Well, they're still pretty small.
People were writing letters back then.
But people would write
Chip,
each other.
Chip would because Chip always was the mouth. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's always been a salesman.
Right.
And he was always, he wanted to take the band as far as it could go. And that's not to say we thought we were going to be famous, but he's like, well, what the fuck? Like when we started in Minnesota, he's like, we should go play at a club.
Right.
We go see these other bands play at First Avenue. Why can't we go play there?
Right.
And, he figured out who to get in touch with, and he got us to play the shows. And then from there, it was like every show that came through that we liked, he made sure that he got us on. Right. And we'd rub elbows with, Youth of Today, Cro-Mags. Who else would have been coming through at that time? Suicidal Tendencies.
Everybody but AF.
Everybody but AF, yeah. But then, then he set up a tour for us.
Right.
And we were playing CB's. That's that summer in '88.
Right.
But on that same tour, we wound up.
You must have been psyched.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that same tour, we wound up playing through Chicago before getting out to New York, and AF played. Yeah. And I think you were at that show.
Was I?
Yeah. It was Agnostic Front, Ludachrist, and it was on the Liberty and Justice tour.
Oh yeah, it's a good chance.
And I remember
hanging around with them on that tour a bunch. So yeah.
The first thing Roger came out on stage, and this song goes out to all the anti-racist skins out there in the audience.
The Baldies were out.
Between Chicago and Minneapolis, there were a lot. I mean, it was that summer was skinhead. Yeah. I mean, everybody was a skinhead.
Yeah.
That's just what it was.
And that's a good thing to touch on, too, because a lot of people don't realize that in the Midwest, there were a lot of anti-racist...
a lot, yeah.
I mean, obviously, there was always the other side there, but politically speaking, but there was a lot of anti-racist cliques, Sharps and Baldies. And
the Minneapolis Baldies made a lot of noise,
absolutely.
Man. And they handled a lot of business.
I remember those guys.
We had some real nasty motherfuckers in St. Paul on that white power tip, and the Baldies... I mean, they went toe to toe. They went toe to toe, and they So so bumped it, talked to AF a little bit at that show,
right?
And the other connection too, I forget, is there was a punk band in Minneapolis that we used to play with. Like we were the Skins and they were the Punks, right? It was like Punk Skin Unity, They were called Misery, and they were basically like our Nausea. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, they basically modeled themselves.
Hoya's favorite band.
They modeled themselves as Nausea, and Al wind up joining Nausea.
Right. Okay.
And living in the house in Staten Island.
Oh, Al. Okay. I remember him.
Al was the singer for Misery, who wound up being the replacement for Neil?
Neil,
right?
Neil, yeah.
So, and even before that. We wound up playing a benefit show for your brother,
right?
At the Anthrax. It was us.
Connecticut.
It was Blind Approach, Slapshot, Instead, maybe.
Wow.
And we stayed at the house in Staten Island. Amy put us up.
Nice.
Because she knew Misery, and she knew,
so there was a connection there, Minneapolis connection.
It was back then, you could, those connections
people would
worked,
do that.
man.
Yeah, those connections meant something, yeah.
So, your brother was away. We were obviously more than happy to play the show.
Sure.
And on top of it, Amy put us up. And we stayed with her for like 3 days.
Wow.
In Staten Island.
You stayed at the house.
Tripping out that this is Roger's house, and, So, and then...
Probably pretty impressed that he had a house. Right? Oh, shit, he lives in a house?
I remember him talking at that Chicago show about, you guys can all come out. I got a house in Staten Island now. I got a swimming pool. I got this. Like, he was talking about having...
Inviting all of Chicago, all the Baldies, everybody. In a whole awkward scene.
Yep. And when we played CB's, your brother was there.
Okay.
Because we opened.
So this was later. So this was later on. You come to CB's.
This is right before Roger went away.
Okay.
This is how I learned he was going away.
Right.
That first tour that Blind Approach had in '88, going out to CB's.
Right.
We were opening for Nausea with, I think, Jimmy Williams. Didn't Jimmy Williams play drums for Nausea?
Yeah, he did for a moment. Yeah.
He was on drums, and but we're up on stage playing, and Roger was in the crowd just watching us the entire time, and he walked up to us.
Huh.
Introduced himself,
nice.
And we just started, talking. And that made a big impression on me.
Right.
Because it's like, not only did, and he knew we're fans. There was just no other way to put it.
Right.
But he didn't have to come talk to us.
Right.
And I don't think he was doing it to kiss anybody's ass or make people think this or that about him.
Right.
He was genuinely interested and thought the band was okay.
Yeah, he was impressed.
Just
was
wanted to come and say, hey, man, I checked it out and it was cool. And then we got to talking a little bit more, and then he mentioned how he was probably going to have to go away for a minute.
Right.
Oh, man. So after all that, after he goes away.
Where was he going?
Vacation upstate.
Vacation.
Yeah.
That vacation upstate New York.
Club Med.
Yeah.
Club.
Yeah.
So eventually when that vacation ended, by that time I was going to school in Boston.
Right.
And Al was still living in Staten Island. And Roger was looking to get the band starting up again. And Steve Martin had quit.
So you were in Boston?
I was in Boston.
So you started school...
Yeah.
You went from your schooling wise. Give us a little background in there to get to so you decided to go to the Berklee College of Music in Boston. So that's where you land.
Yep. All I did for most of my teenage years was play guitar.
That was your passion. That was everything.
I could kill 8 hours in a day just sitting in my basement and just playing along the records and just
See, kids. You want to play like Matt Henderson someday? Play your guitars 100 hours a day.
It wasn't like
it shows.
It wasn't like I gotta be. I just love doing it.
Right.
And I luckily somehow things just came together for me where I felt like I could tell this sounds pretty good. I think I'm.
And how did that happen? The Berklee thing. How did?
That's just it.
How did you get into a school like that? Because it's a pretty prestigious.
The thing is with that school. If you can pay the tuition, they're going to get you in, man.
Yeah.
They really
Money
are.
talks.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I could never recommend that school, in all honesty. It's just, if you want to be a professional musician or in the recording field, don't go to a 4-year college. You don't need it. Get just anything. If you're going to go to school, if you're going to spend the money on tuition and get a degree, get in something that can really, put you in some type of career path that can make you a little bit of money.
Right.
Right. If you want to be a musician, no one's going to did my fucking...
Yeah, they're not going to place you in a band.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You know what?
Or you're going to be, you graduated, you're one of the best guitarists here, you're going to Metallica next, when you graduate.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the fuck out of here.
There is a career placement, program.
Right.
And
studios, engineering. And
Berklee had a career placement program, and they had counselors there. And one of the things they recommend for the performing musicians is, as soon as you're done with school, join a cruise ship band.
Oh boy!
Yeah,
that was their advice.
That was the good way to get your foot in the door. You're playing live in front of people, and
that's all they had for you. That's about it. That was the extent of them placing you somewhere,
or go
play
back
for AF.
or teach. or teach at Berkeley.
Oh boy!
And then it became real. So then,
on the performing side of things, you're going to be. It's a no. It doesn't pay.
Nah, it just doesn't make sense. So when Roger wanted to get the band back together, and Al's living at the house, they need a guitar player. Al's like, "Hey,
that's your guy.
That kid Matt, who was in that band Blind Approach from the Twin Cities, he's in Boston right now. You should give him a call. You know, he might be ready to do it for you." And I was working at a video store, and my girlfriend at the time called me up and said, Roger from Agnostic Front just called you. He wants you to join the band and go to Europe.
And remind kids, this is like he leaves he calls your house on a regular phone line, right? This is like not on a cell phone, not on your iPhone, like, go, you know.
And at first I was like, I'm thinking it could be like Chip or some of the fellas like trying to
pranking you.
Yeah, you know, I'm like, but then she gave me the number and I knew it was a New York number.
718.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I called him and sure enough, it was him. And we talked and I started going down there every weekend. And
there you go.
Yeah. Went to Europe. That was a rough tour, bro.
that first one for you guys. What year was that? I wish I'd remember
90.
that. 90?
1990.
Oh my God, 90.
Yeah.
And when did we go with Madball? It was 92? That time when Madball opened up for
December of 92.
Yeah, I always thought it was 92. People say 93 to me. I'm like, it wasn't 93.
It was December
It was before
of
93. Because 93, we went to South America with Hoya.
You did?
Yeah, we did. What do you mean you did?
We did.
Because
it was before
Set It Off.
Before Set It Off.
Before. It was Roger on bass, everybody rocking the flannels. Remember that shit?
Yeah.
And people were like, it's 93. I'm like, no. Before 93, because Hoya was in the band in 93.
You know why? Because January, or no, the last AF show was just at Christmas time at CB's in December.
Right.
Remember the last AF show?
Yeah.
But that's true, though. The band broke up.
No, it did. For years.
Yeah.
People forget that, too.
You're right, for years.
For many years.
Yep.
Like 4 years or some shit.
Which is one of the reasons I never felt like... I always thought it wasn't a gimmick by any stretch. I mean, we waved that flag.
Yeah.
Because there was...
You mean Madball?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was a void to fill, and we had you and Willie and like half AF, Vinny at the time.
Yep.
So we did have to. I'm my brother, that's my brother, and like, well, who's going to fill the void of AF? And then, we were like, well, that's some pretty big shoes to fill. So we kind of had to bring it in our own kind of crazy way. But so AF, what was the first record you played on?
One Voice.
One Voice.
Yeah.
And that was it. And after that was Madball.
Yeah, we recorded that last show at CB's, and that got released. But I mean, that was just a.
Did you write a lot of that stuff? And how was it going in since you're playing for them for the first time? Because I know what it is to play with dudes they used to listen to.
Yeah.
That's got to be something.
How was it that? Were you? Did you bring a lot to the table? Did they ask you to bring riffs, or they just wanted you to play? Did somebody write the riffs? How did it work out?
So Roger got us a rehearsal studio in Staten Island. Willie was living at the house at that time. At the house, so I basically lived there too. It was me and Willie and Roger lived in the house.
Yeah.
And Craig used to come in to Staten Island, and
he'd come and stay there for days at a time and shit. Yeah.
And I did wind up writing a lot, for sure. I mean, writing riffs was something I felt like I'd kind of, been able to get good at. But I learned a lot. Craig really, Willie played
you guys had, that was a heavy, my AF, that was like a real necessary youthful injection for AF, man, to have that squad. I mean, you, Craig and Willie, you guys were beasts.
You know what was my biggest influence? My biggest influence at that time, I just stumbled across it, and I stumbled across it late in the game, but still early enough, was Killing Time, Brightside.
Oh, one of the best hardcore albums ever.
Like, to me, I was just like, how did I, another band that didn't tour, really, outside of, like, the Northeast, so they never made it to my neck of the woods.
Right.
And I'd never realized they were even a band.
Right.
And somehow, one of my boys, I remember, who came to visit me in Boston a while back, left his tape behind, was, Brightside cassette.
Oof.
And I was like, this shit's fucking badass.
Yeah.
And they were a little more complex musically, you know what I mean? A little more intricate.
Yeah.
And not to say that that's what I always wanted to do, but I was like, that's cool. It just kind of opened the doors a little bit more, it seemed like. And so when we started writing for One Voice, a lot of that was in my head.
Right.
A lot of that.
So that Bright Side record was real influential at that point in time in your life.
And Willie played like a professional drummer. Like that was the first time I ever played with a drummer that played like
good old Dick Shepler.
Good old Dick Shepler. But you know who really brought the most to the table as far as like shaping the record was Craig.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Rounding out like his head. Rounding out
because you know what he was? He's a really analytical guy. So when you're writing a song,
and he had some shit under his belt. He had been with a bunch of bands by that point. And
he's a very
more seasoned than probably you guys at that point.
He'd recorded at Normandy already,
right?
Which in those days, you're recording the tape.
Yeah,
there is no Pro Tools. You can't do the take and then say, well, it was cool except for we had this problem here. Let me cut and do some paste and I'll take care of it.
Keep that part of it. And
No, your performance had to be spot on because you're going to tape and that's really how it's got to get there.
Yeah.
So he just had that he had more pro music experience than me
and all you guys. Yeah.
And so, but he's also really analytical. Like we'd sit there and write something. He always chewed on his fingers. Remember that?
Yeah.
He'd sit there and you'd watch him and you'd wait. But then he'd say something and he'd be like, he's like, okay, that part there's got to change. I'm like, why? He's like, because you don't hear that? Or like he'd make some feel. And he always have those crazy like terms. Like it's too much celery. You don't hear the celery in that? We need
some
more
things never change.
We need more forehead.
He always had the good
forehead.
I love it.
But and so I'd have to credit him for really teaching me how to really get into the trenches when you try to put a song together.
Right.
Makes a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was a big record. A lot of people, love that record. Oh, yeah. Also for the production of the record.
But when it came out, everyone hated it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the funny thing. It wasn't
the younger cats were cool with it, like, because it was more fresh than what the other stuff was, right? To them,
right.
And
a little more groove.
Yeah. But the older people were like, "Fuck this doesn't sound like." Yeah. I want to hear Victim in Pain.
I mean, we were all hanging out together. We were hanging out together at that time. But I thought the campaign was big for that record because he got out of jail. Roger got out of jail.
It was.
And then, all that. The record was dope. The big production, the big produce. I mean, for hardcore, the big producer name, and there was flyers everywhere.
I think you're right, though. It was a big
campaign. And big tours. I wanted to bring up the tour that you guys did that... It's a big tour that even, in the metal world, people forget this. There was a big tour that you guys did with Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, Malevolent Creation, Agnostic Front.
Yep.
So that must have been crazy because that was at a time where,
Obituary was big.
That was Obituary when they were popping, brand new, and there was Roadrunner had their thing popping off. What was up with that tour?
That was amazing.
That was at the height of AF's One Voice campaign right there. That was like...
And we got more love on that tour than any other tour that I was a part of.
Were open to you guys.
Yep. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. There was a definite, worlds colliding.
Well, AF had enough elements. I mean, you had all the Cause for Alarm stuff, and you know what I mean? And then One Voice would appeal to metal kids, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Agnostic Front's one of those bands that everybody knows, or at least they think they know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whether or not they're actually fans or not,
right?
But it was a name that people associated heavy music with,
right?
And rest in peace to Frank from Obituary.
Yeah, I know.
We just had some bad news that he passed, but he was a good dude, a great bass player, and he always had a lot of love for the New York hardcore scene.
Man, he was the biggest
so
in that camp,
mad love to his family and everything, but and shout out to Obituary. We're going to be actually seeing them soon. We're playing with them
January 30th.
January 30th, 2016 in Tampa. So we get to see them and hang out, but Yeah, the tour. What else?
Great guys.
You
Frank,
remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Because Freddie was on the tour with us.
I was a roadie.
Frank every night would come out and play bass for United Blood. He'd come out and play that, and those guys would put us. I mean, they'd share their bus with us because we were in a van.
They offered it,
and we'd have some long.
Certain
tours,
people took liberties,
long trips. Yeah,
we won't mention those people.
But they did. They said, "Look, we got extra bunks." Like they used to get mad at us. Like I remember one time, and Roger didn't want it. And I understood why.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't want us to come across like being freeloaders or taking advantage of.
Not to mention he's sick and he wanted everyone to suffer.
Well, there's that. Yeah,
I can say that. You don't have to say that.
There was that.
Say that about my brother.
But and then we show up the next day at the. He's like, and John, the singer, would be like, "You guys are dicks. What's the matter with you? We got these open bunks. Just sleep in it. You know."
Yeah.
So,
did you ever go on there? Because I thought none of us ever did.
I did once or twice, but
3 times, 5 times, 6 times.
No,
but not a lot.
No,
because I can remember being in those van rides, and it was all of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Except certain people.
Well, there was because you didn't want to leave the rest of the fellas behind,
right?
And like just
you stick with your team, for better or worse.
Yeah. But Obituary brought it, bro.
Yeah.
That was another band to me that like opened my eyes and said, "Damn." Because they were heavy.
Yeah.
And they had that groove. I mean, Don Tardy on drums, killing it every night.
Yeah.
And they I remember, like, we would play, like, Denver, let's say, and when we were on stage, the Skinheads were just destroying the place. I mean, just trying to fight the metalheads and basically just beating people up the entire time.
How crazy that was still happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it is the early 90s.
Yeah.
It was 92, right?
Yeah, 92. It was also 100 years ago. Think about how many years ago. 92
was a long time ago now, but then you were thinking...
I
got thrown out of
failed math. Matty didn't even fucking... It didn't matter what he said. 2 plus 2, whatever, 7. 8.
2 plus 2, Jello.
But by the time Obituary would go on, everyone's too busy dancing.
Right.
There's no beef. Like they brought that groove.
And that was one of the there was 2 metal bands.
That's impressive too to have.
Yeah.
There was 2 metal bands that it didn't matter if you were a skinhead or a metalhead. And that was Slayer and Obituary.
Yep.
And one more, Celtic Frost. Whenever they played, for some reason, it didn't matter.
Celtic Frost. I mean, there would have been. I mean, I think they'll admit it. Obituary. If it
exactly.
Wasn't for Celtic
And
Frost.
shout out to Celtic Frost. We have a lot of history with them. There's actually, besides that,
22 years, man.
I'll give you well. Anyway,
Is that it? Yeah. Okay.
Damn, that's a long time. Well, I got a Celtic Frost story we're going to do it another time, but it's a good one. But those were the bands that all the Skins would come out to.
Yeah.
And they always had that thing, so it was a lot of classic shows, especially the one in New York. There was actually a riot in New York that was pretty fun. I remember it was the one voice. It was the one voice.
Was that Obituary?
Yeah, I think it was that. I remember.
I don't remember.
At the Palladium, there was a riot, and there was all these dudes doing crazy stuff.
But that was an AF show.
That was an AF show.
Oh, I thought it was on that tour.
It wasn't on that.
No.
Where did AF? Did AF play? Did New York happen on that tour? I feel like it did.
Yeah, it did.
Where?
I think the Ritz.
Yeah?
I think so.
Fuck, I don't remember the New York show. I remember like a bunch of other shows, but I don't remember New York. I remember Detroit.
Yeah.
I remember the Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Yeah.
I remember like...
Do you remember that story?
Random.
Do you remember hanging with the Detroit guys in Milwaukee?
You
don't remember
at the
that?
Metal Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And afterwards, the tour's over. I mean, the show's over.
Yeah.
And Ronnie...
Oh,
and a couple
rest
other guys.
in peace, Ron, man. One
Go
of
back to
our
our
homies.
hotel.
Cold as life.
Roger was off the tour at that point.
Yeah.
Roger was back.
Well, that's why I said that because it's like that was. Remember, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna have to sing now." And I'm like, "What? Yeah. No, I don't want to do that. I'm cool with going up and doing one little song or something." And then my first show was Detroit. He left at the Metal Fest. He left,
even though you were obviously Madball before that. That was a pretty big...
That was my training ground.
Yeah, it was your training ground. You had to sing the entire set for probably 2 weeks, or at least a week, right?
More than that, yeah.
And they were big shows.
More than a week. It was probably 2 weeks.
Big shows.
Why? Why did he have to sing? Where was Roger?
Oh, my God.
Was there something...
Roger had some sort of... Something happened. He got sick, and he had to go address it.
I wonder what.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Everyone, ask Roger next time you see him. Why is it that you had to leave that tour? But my brother, he's like, he's not going to cancel the tour for nothing in the world. So he was like, well,
it was a big tour.
The songs. You know the songs. It was a big tour. It was an important tour.
Yeah.
So I jumped in.
And one thing I wanted to know, so you're playing with AF. Was there something physically said when the band was about to stop playing, when AF was about to break up? Was there did Roger say, oh, we're going to have a meeting or whatever? Was there a meeting, or did you see it kind of happening little by little? And once you saw that, since, I know you have family back home and you ain't originally from the East Coast, were you thinking what was going to be your next move?
Yeah,
that's a really good question. I saw.
Excuse me.
That was a not an easy or great time for hardcore, because there was kind of that was probably the first cycle of the post-hardcore, quicksand.
I always thought that's probably the worst period of hardcore.
I think it was
90s,
yeah.
And I think people forget that. Like when Madball started, not to get back on the Madball tip, but we started at the worst point of hardcore.
Yep.
Just because we were associated with AF didn't mean like we were going to come and play the Ritz in front of 1,000 people. Actually, it was quite the opposite. Remember them shows we played in the beginning?
Big opposite.
20 people?
Yeah.
And people think like, oh, they're AF's little brother, so they're going to just blow up. No,
I didn't think we were going to just blow up necessarily, but myself, I kind of thought, all right, there's probably, if there's any type of, if that name means anything to anybody, I would think that so would Madball.
Right.
But
we'll get into that.
So it was a combination of the fact that the scene was just not really there to support the band anymore.
Right.
And, there have been some weird business management decisions that kind of took their toll on everybody. I think everybody was just kind of over it
at that point.
And, Roger obviously made the call. He decided he was going to go down to Miami to do or that wasn't Miami, Orlando.
Yeah.
For the Harley Davidson
school.
The mechanic.
I thought it was 10 speeds.
That was actually a smart move because he had to have something to, something under his belt.
Yeah. And I could never work in New York. I had no connection for any type of job.
Yeah.
And any type of job I was going to try to get, if I had to go tour, I'm quitting that job. So I was having a hard time making money over there.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I could think of was to go back to school.
Yeah.
Which is what I did. So I went back to Boston. And then I remember, because Madball, you were in the band.
I was
By the time I went back to school, weren't you in the band?
I don't know. I just...
Well, let's recap. That Europe tour that Madball did with AF was probably one of the last tours, right? That was on that string of last shows, last tours.
Yeah, and Madball to me at that time wasn't technically a band. It was a side project.
We had Dropping Many Suckers. That was it,
right?
And Hoya was already. We were all friends by that point. Hoya was already my friend by that point
because we played shows around New York after that tour.
Yeah.
Right. It was up to the last CB show where we all played shows together.
Yeah, because I remember my old band Demise actually played together. We played with AF, Madball, Demise.
Yep.
Yeah. We've played in Long Island and CBs or something like.
Yep.
And but all right, but let me ask you this. All right, so you know that's happening. Now this is one thing I don't know. I just remember when you guys asked me if I wanted to fill in to jump on.
Yeah.
Because, remind people that Roger was playing bass.
Yeah, so the original Madball lineup was basically agnostic front, but Roger was playing on bass.
Yeah. Right.
So when Roger decided to move away, right, how did it come up to say, hey, let's fuck around and do a Madball project again? What was it like? What was the reason? Why?
That's what I'm having trouble remembering. Believe it or not,
and it was like the worst time in hardcore. So it wasn't like it was like a great time to like start doing another band. But I don't know. I don't remember.
I was having fun with it. Just remembering my own experience.
Sure,
because it was just a little tougher and meaner than AF, the one voice AF.
Had a different little grit to it.
Yeah, it was more stripped down, a little more, raw and nasty, and
ugly.
The breakdowns I thought were harder, but so yeah, I think we were just it must have been we just going to play shows on the weekends, right? Why not?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because
I don't fucking remember that either. I just remember. I don't even remember why we did Dropping Many Suckers, to be honest with you. I think Roger had a whole book of lyrics, and like we were like, let's do something. And I'm like, all right, let's do it.
We did that, so we had a release for that tour.
Right. Yeah, because we didn't want to go over there empty-handed, so we did an EP.
Yep. But, I mean, because how did we all of a sudden get with Roadrunner?
No, well, that's later.
That's later.
Yeah, like,
but not much.
No, but yeah, exactly. What I remember is this. So,
because I went back to school in '93.
You told me, I remember you said you want to jump in. You told me, hey, you want to jump on? We're gonna do. I remember you said, we're gonna do a couple weekends.
The Demise was ending. Right?
Yep. Yeah, my old.
Hoya's not gonna be doing.
My old band was breaking up. It was like we were already, it wasn't. We probably played 13 shows in our existence anyway. But I was getting done with that, and then I remember you guys asking me to fill in because we were already hanging out. But I remember it was you guys told me, no, a couple weekend shows, maybe we do like a week tour or something.
Started.
And then you had why I thought it was already kind of planned out because you had like a couple weekends like up in the Northeast. Remember Boston, Maine?
Yeah.
You had like real weekends. I never did that like that.
Who was booking for it? Who was booking us then? It had to have been somebody because I wasn't setting that up.
I couldn't tell you. No, you weren't. I mean.
But I want to know
I can't remember.
It's good that you bring up how did we end. All right, so. We start jamming.
Yeah.
But now you brought up getting signed to Roadrunner because I remember.
It wasn't Tim, was it?
It might have been Tim Bora. I think it probably was.
Really
he's our booking agent now.
It couldn't be Tim Bora back then.
It could have been
because he worked with us early on, and then we bounced around Finberg, a couple of different people, But Tim did some early stuff. It might have been Tim, man. Who knows? It might have been before he worked with anybody else.
Yeah.
Which is funny because full circle, here he is. He's our U.S. guy forever now.
Because we played a fair amount of shows before Set It Off.
Yeah,
like those
some weekends.
Back when I was living with Rick.
Yeah, weekends and stuff.
Yeah. We'd play, like the Toxic Narcotic days. Remember?
Yeah, the Bruisers. A lot of those kind of shows.
Yep.
That's some fun shows.
They were.
We really cut our teeth doing like those Northeast, like Boston and Maine, and New York, Jersey,
Rhode Island used to be
New
good
York
shows.
Sometimes, man. Right?
Babyhead was
amazing.
Guaranteed.
When did New York start kicking up again? Because that was like what,
Not
95,
until
6?
Wetlands, right?
Yeah. Coney Island and Wetlands.
Yeah.
Which is 95 and up.
Well, no, because we did
94.
Yeah. I think we were playing Wetlands before Set It Off came out. Guaranteed we were.
Remember when we played NYU?
Yeah.
There was like fucking 5 people.
Yeah. And then my friend Norm.
No, but no. NYU was my first show with the band, and I got fucking hit in the head with the microphone. This fucking nigga Freddy was fucking spinning the microphone, and it ricocheted off my head. And we were playing a club that fit like 1,300 people, and there was probably 13 people there.
Us at 25, right?
Yeah, us 25 to life. There was probably somebody else, and I just remember somebody backstage.
I think it's like a no redeeming social.
I remember
value,
Fred Mess pissing in a bottle, and we watching some guy who kept coming in asking for beer.
Yep.
And we gave him the bottle, and I just remember the guy drinking, and he was, that tastes a little weird, but he downed the whole thing.
Yep.
But that's what I'm saying. Does anybody here right now remember how did us getting signed to Roadrunner like come up? I have a story in my head that I've been rocking with for years, but I don't even know if I made it up in my head.
I know for me it was a rough decision to agree to because I'm like.
Besides that, but coming up to it,
school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really like the band.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I mean, you had fun doing it. And when we did it in Europe, you guys always had fun. You guys always looked forward to doing the Madball set.
But not to boil things down to money because it's really not the thing that is all important to me. But if you don't got money, life can be pretty fucking miserable.
Yeah.
And I could never figure out a way to earn a living. And I'm like, well, I did it once, did it twice, and I'm like, now I'm back in school. Maybe I should just be sticking with school and hey, playing music is great, but let me try to get some school finished here.
Yep.
But yeah, we had that shitty fucking demo tape
Yeah, I
remember. I can't remember what the song was, but it was never a real song.
Yeah.
We never actually, right?
Yeah, it was never.
Never dropped it?
No.
Thank God. Yo, shout out to Howie, because, Howie always loved the band, and he really loved us, because that demo was horrible. That shit sucked.
Yeah.
But I just remembered when it came up, it was like we were basically getting offered the biggest metal label at the time to want to do our record.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, like, fuck it. Like, why not? What the fucking worst thing that could happen? Like, right, we do a record.
Gave Howie a demo?
Yeah. Yeah, we gave him a tape that we just recorded off a boombox.
Well, I know Howie.
With Willie on drums.
We're going to talk to Howie one of these days too, because we got something lined up for Howie Abrams. But I will say, Howie Abrams, for whatever reason, always believed in Madball.
Who was Agnostic Front's A&R.
Now, I don't know if you guys remember different, but this is how I remember it. And remember, this might be all bullshit. I'm not like bullshitting on purpose. I could have sworn that we were trying to go talk to the label that you guys were on before, Wreckage. Yeah. And us running into Howie. And we're like, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah.
That makes sense.
Listen, hold on.
Yeah. They were right there.
Hold on. Exactly.
Right,
and I remember, and I could be wrong, but I remember running into Howie and then, oh, what's up? Yo, we're going to go talk to Wreckage. Why? Oh, because we're doing the Madball. He's like, you doing the Madball? And he told us, call me.
I'm with Roadrunner, yeah.
And that's the fact. I've been telling people that for years. It could be bullshit.
It does sound like it's a possibility.
That makes sense to me.
But I remember
because you guys kind of had it set up. Like you didn't have it set up, but like it was almost like the deal. You guys had kind of been. You knew more about it than I did,
right?
And then eventually, I'm in Boston, and it's like we're talking on the phone. I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, but I was like, I had to make the decision. If I'm going to agree and we're going to sign and we're going to, once
commit to
sign,
you got a tour and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, why the fuck else are you doing it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially in those days. No label's going to be like, because they.
No, you had to commit to a certain amount of touring.
Even though we didn't get a lot of money in our budget, it was still tens of thousands of dollars or something. I mean, it was.
Oh my God, yeah. Back then. It's more than now.
How surprising look.
Yeah, oh my God.
I mean, right?
No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
that's how you had to do it. That's how you had to make a
and that's what you would spend on the record. Yeah. You would spend it all. Now you can.
We weren't lining our pockets.
Yeah, it was about $1,000 a day to be in a studio, and we were there for a minimum 2 weeks at a time.
Include some whack ass lodging, but it was lodging.
Well, haunted houses with Jamie Locke.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
sometimes it was
good enough.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah, I guess the rooms weren't. They were nice. They were nice locations. Let's say that.
Some of them,
right.
The mansion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
Remember with homie fucking Cowboys?
Dave Brown.
Did a Space Cowboy.
Maurice.
Yeah, but not Maurice. Michael Johnson. Michael
Johnson. Yeah, Johnson crew. Shout out to Michael Johnson. Good guy.
So no, we got it was. Well, whatever. We're gonna talk to Howie about that one. We gotta figure that out.
Yeah, we gotta figure out how that happened. So let's go back since we're talking to Maddie. This is Maddie's interview. What did you what was going through your head at that point? Because you must have been over it and like you're in school. Like what are you thinking now?
Yeah, I'm thinking this might not be the right thing to do, but it was obviously just. I mean, it's in my blood.
You felt something.
I felt enough, and I really enjoyed the band at that time. And looking back on it now, I don't know what that's saying exactly because we didn't really hit our stride until we started sitting down and really writing for Set It Off.
Yeah,
and I remember.
Yeah, we didn't even know. We didn't even know who we were. We didn't know what direction. We were like somewhat, but not really.
And not like I had any like reason to think otherwise, but I just didn't know what like Hoya was going to be able to bring to the table musically, right? And I'm like, fuck, man. I just hope. I knew I didn't want it to be all me,
right?
And I'm like hoping that Hoya's
you can collaborate. You can collaborate with people.
Yeah, and
there you go.
And the fucking riff master.
I was worried about at the time.
I remember you holding back a little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of like, what the fuck am I tell these dudes? Yo, I got this fucking riff. You want to check it out? I was like. Yo, I was more worried about
pedigree and all that. So you.
Yeah, it was. I grew up with the band, and then I'm like. I was more worried about being able to keep up playing wise. I was like, because they were all real players, and I'm like, man, these guys are taking that shit serious. I go, I'm hanging out, like I don't know what this is all about. But I remember I wasn't sure about the riffs because I was like, That's why the first song I wrote was an AF bite.
Yep.
It was a one voice bite because I said, "Fuck, what I'm gonna do?" I said, "I'm gonna bite their own song."
Yep.
Because you guys asked me, I remember you guys got any riffs, and I sat there and I'm like, because I was playing already.
That's right. We played this time. It's time.
Exactly. That was the first song I wrote,
and we played that for a while before Set It Off.
Yeah, and that was because I was like, the first one I wrote was It's Time, and then Set It Off. Set It Off was,
when you wrote Set It Off, that's when I knew we had something a little different.
But that was the thing was, what were you, when we started to write for that record, what was your plan on what you wanted to do for that record?
We knew it had to be different than AF, right? Because that'd be corny to just have some sort of copy band.
To me, we already were like. I mean,
we're already under
just to keep. You know, I got to be honest. One of the bands that had made a big impression around that time, and were kind of setting the standard for heaviness and groove and dance breakdown parts, was Biohazard.
Yeah,
I mean, whether or not you liked the band, at minimum, you were forced to realize that.
Damn, they got something. They're bringing something.
And here's what people are really responding to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because Biohazard actually was popping off.
Those breakdowns. I mean, if your music ain't having it, I'm not saying every band's got to have that, but
yeah.
You know what I mean. So I knew I wanted it to have
those
groove.
Components.
I knew I wanted it to have groove.
And we're Spanish and we're Latin, so naturally,
I mean, and that's the thing to me too. It wasn't New York. I mean, hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, what the fuck?
We were big hip hop heads always.
But even in the late '80s, I mean, New York. Look at when I first met Cro-Mags.
Yeah.
These motherfuckers. Yo, that nigga this, that nigga that. I mean, and I'm like, I wasn't offended, but I was just like.
Yeah,
these guys are
urban.
Like, yeah, exactly, as urban to the extreme. You know what I mean? And Minneapolis wasn't. We were urban, but that was like there was that whole extra level of street
slang,
and swagger, and I mean, we already knew who. I mean, all the old hip hop coming out of New York, but even eventually, like My Philosophy.
KRS.
And exactly. Like you just, it was a street thing. It was like if you're at street level in New York and hardcore happens to be your shit, you're in the street though, and so you're dealing with hip hop, and hip hop was just, I mean, that's New York culture, man. Yeah. So it made sense to blend that music and that groove, but have that kind of mean.
And Hoya and I were obviously big into that. In those days, we were going to hip hop clubs and doing, and then at the same time going to hardcore shows. It was like we were big into that culture.
Let me ask you this: what was the biggest difference with writing songs from Agnostic Front and then with Madball?
Yeah, good question.
Well, I felt more confident that writing with Madball because I'd gone through the Agnostic Front One Voice boot camp
with all the guys,
and I just,
that was your training ground, so you came into it with a little more savvy.
Yeah, I felt confident in kind of like being able to, I wasn't necessarily thinking I had to, but if no one else was going to be able to, at least I felt like I'd be able to help steer it along and wind up with a good, end result.
Sure.
That we wouldn't all just be fucking looking at each other and,
What do we do now?
Yeah.
Play Get Out again?
Yeah. And I was excited about, the music we could potentially make. I loved the music we were making. Like, Set It Off, Demonstrate My Style, Look My Way were, the riffs that really worked on those records. I mean, that's how I wanted our, like,
yeah, that was
I got a feeling from that. That was like, that's how I want this shit to sound.
Right.
Like, that's it. So, that was exciting. That kept me motivated.
Right. And you and Hoya complemented each other very well, and I think that dynamic was also what separated it from like
exactly. The good thing was I wasn't alone doing it. You know what I mean? Right. We would
not to say that you couldn't, because you
have
have your own style that you could tell that's Matt Henderson's style, but that combo with what Hoya was bringing to the table.
Yeah, I mean that makes it better. It makes it more exciting. That makes it something that because we start feeding off each other, and I mean you too. I could write a riff that I thought was pretty good, and there was a few songs where all of a sudden you would just come in with lyrics that just like you had the chorus, you had these verses. It's like, damn, that's it. I mean, that is exactly how it's supposed to sound.
Cool,
So
I love you
because I couldn't write lyrics and sing. Well, no, you could though. I was so glad that you could.
All right. Now let's go along a little bit more. So, all right, we're writing these first couple of records, right? So, I know along with you, we were never sure about when the next record was coming. Every record was like, we never planned records in advance because I remember every record not sure being we were going to be a band. I always thought you were going to go to school. This nigga's going to do something. Somebody's going to do something every record.
Right
now. You eventually end up leaving the band.
Yeah.
Why? Well, we want to know why. What was any certain situation, where you were at, and what was the final draw making you exit?
That was already fast. Yeah, you already fast forwarded that much, huh? Damn. What about all the great years of touring and breaking ground and going to Europe and suffering and playing to 20 people and then next thing you know, playing Dynamo Festival and being shocked because we had only played shitty little clubs. And I mean, we really paid some dues, man, didn't we? Yep. I mean, we not trying to sound like but it was some shit.
I mean,
the connection to AF was great. It's always a great thing, but it didn't make us $1 million or put us in front of a gazillion people. I mean, it's hardcore music at the end of the day,
Yep.
But we had some great years, Matty, right? I mean,
absolutely. And I mean, I think it's proof in the fact that we're still friends to this day.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what bugs me out. Like a lot of these bands, like there's so many bands out there that after like one guy leaves or the band breaks up or who knows what, there's so much beef.
Yeah.
And it's like all, people publicly dissing each other and writing books about each other. And
weird
I'm
shit.
like, were you guys never, ever actually like, could you imagine being in a band where you were just, like,
all business?
I mean, we were having fun on the road. We were like family traveling together. That
Well, him and I met on a friendship level even right before he was in the band, and then I was hanging out with you guys with AF, and we were boys. Like you and I would have beers and
even outside of that, I'd be at your family's house. You
ate at my
knew
mother's
each other's
house.
families, and it's just like. So I mean,
but I think that separates us from a lot of people in a way. I think Madball specifically, and AF too. I think that kind of came from AF. But AF had a couple of weirdo lineups and shit here and there. But I think that the family thing, that family vibe was always there, and with Madball especially. I think with every line. I mean, like you said, like your family. You know what I mean to us. Same with Will. We were just with Will in upstate.
Right.
Will's our brother.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, these are friendships. We were just with Craig in Europe. Like, these are friendships that are never going to go away no matter where we are in our lives,
Yeah.
But that's not everyone's like that,
But what was the situation? There was a lot that happened in between. And we're actually running out of battery time and a lot of shit going on. No, but so there's definitely gonna be a part 2 because there's also we could be here for days because there's a lot of stuff that happened in those early days, which we're definitely gonna
what was your time?
hit back again.
Just before you say whatever you got to say, what was it? So 92
to 90, I think late 97.
Not 98.
I might have made it. Yeah, no, it was 98 because I was 28.
Now, real quickly, just and honestly, you could tell people where the band was at that time that because we were in a crazy place.
Yeah.
And it was a big reason for your exit. But, real quickly, you could tap in on... It was crazy.
It was really crazy. I mean, I want to say you had don't you have a episode coming up talking about Tijuana?
Yeah.
So that was on that tour.
Yeah.
It was a combination of me,
where you were in your life,
where I was in my life, or where I thought I was supposed to be.
You were married at the time.
Where I thought I was supposed to be in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And not to say at 28 you're, I mean that's.
Yeah.
It's not old, in the grand scheme of things, but like I just didn't feel like I had established myself, or I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
We would be on one of the things. It was kind of a mind fuck for me.
Yeah.
We're signed to a label, and we were legitimate professional musicians.
Right.
No matter how you slice it, that's what we were.
We were.
I mean,
still trying to figure that out.
We're signing contracts, going into professional recording studios.
Sure, I get it.
It's and. There was always a hope that maybe, not like I wanted to fucking be like the next Van Halen, but
just comfortable.
Can we get paid here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can
we make something?
And I believed in the music where I thought enough people should be responding to it. What the fuck? I can't get up on stage and promote this if I didn't believe in it. I did.
Of course.
And there were other bands that I thought, I mean, how come we don't seem to click in the same way to this wider audience than some of these guys do?
Right.
But whatever. It wasn't exactly playing out that
way. Still to this day, man, it's frustrating.
And so that was a problem for me. Always still coming home and then like struggling for money.
Yeah. Which we always did. I mean, how many odd jobs did we all have in between?
Yeah. And the Tijuana madness was at its peak.
I was out of my mind. I gotta take some. I gotta take some responsibility here too. I think that tour was the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say.
I mean,
that wasn't. I mean, that was just a crazy, insane environment.
What?
It was one thing after another, debauchery, this, that. It was just insane. So I don't blame you. I always say I don't blame you for that being your last tour, because like you were already considering moving on because you were in a different situation than we were.
Yeah.
You were in a different place. You were older. You were in a different place in your life.
You had said how you were never sure if we were going to be a band each record.
Yeah.
So I think we wrestled with that as people. Willie wrestled with it more than me because he quit first.
Yes, he did. Wow, that's right. 96, right? 96 or 7.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Bunch of quitters.
And when he did that, it wasn't like, I got to quit too, but it was kind of like,
well, he was going to school, wasn't he?
We're getting to that point now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So that was difficult. That
he was also engaged and thinking about going back to school. It was a
combination of me dealing with life and shit was hectic
Insanity.
with the band for a little while. I mean, remember going out.
We were in a bad way
with and having Interpol come up to us every day.
Yeah. Interpol was like the equivalent of the FBI in Europe. Kids,
I think
don't mess with them.
My chain had been rattled just enough where I was like,
there were guys on the run that were associated with us. Things were happening left and right.
If I can start to think about things and worry to the point where I'm off on the next level before we even got through. I'm at thinking of version 9 when
we're not even at version 2
through 8. But it wasn't impossible.
No.
Like
it wasn't out of the
I
realm
really
of
believe that we were heading down a path where someone was going to really get in some serious trouble.
Yeah. And
I could have been part of it just through association.
Guilty by association, which is what we call that tour, ironically enough, we end up calling it.
It was never a judgment. It was just like, I don't think I should be continuing. That's all.
It was definitely a real crazy time.
Sorry we put
you in our life. And I believe this. I believe God does things for a reason. I'm saying God because I believe in God, and if you don't believe in God, that's your business, your energy, 10-armed God, whatever you believe in, the Martians, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I believe things happen for a reason.
I agree.
And I see you got a beautiful family, and that's what you were supposed to have.
Yep.
So that was supposed to have happened, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did. That we didn't, again, like you said, we didn't end up having beef with each other, and hatred for shit that we did for fun, and that ended up was never meant to be a business plan.
That's
ended
right.
up becoming a business.
We were friends first.
And businesses ruined.
Always.
Luckily, we had chemistry and made some great albums together.
And he's pretty cute. You know, he's blonde. Let everybody know he's blonde. He got green eyes. Are they green or fuchsia? Is that fuchsia?
Blue, baby blue.
But what I wanted to say is now you're living out in the West Coast.
Yep.
I know you're working. You got your family.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit. Yeah, you still doing a little bit of the music?
With us just this year.
Yeah. Let everybody know what you're doing now.
Doing another one next year. He doesn't know yet, but I'm going to talk to him off air about that.
Yeah, we might have we might have a little special things we might be trying to work out, and maybe we could work it out, and maybe Europe could have some fun. And we didn't say nothing, but we're saying something. But real quick, why don't you let everybody know what you're doing now with the new band, what you've done real quick, and anything you want to shout out, any West Coast fam.
Yeah, doing the family. Couldn't be happier.
Which is more important, the most important thing for
could not be happier.
That's number one.
I got a beautiful wife and 3 amazing sons.
Agreed.
And everybody's happy and healthy, and it's a good thing. I do have a regular job, and it's keeping me afloat.
The eulogy, tell us about that.
The eulogy, yeah.
That's what we want to know.
The eulogy is a group of friends, right?
Right. Back to that, started that way, and
which is really, I'm not doing it because I need to get up on stage and play music and be a band. I'm doing it because I love music and I like hanging out with my friends, and that's why we do this thing called the eulogy. Right. And we're taking our time.
What style is it?
Hardcore, it's got a little bit of a metal sound compared to some of the other bands out there right now, I think, just because we tuned down real low. But
go check them out. You could probably find their stuff also on YouTube.
He's gonna be
download it.
AF too.
Yeah, we're playing with AF at Alex's in December.
There you go, and definitely look out for them. And I know you told me you guys here and there, you get together whenever you can and try to make music happen. And we also want to shout out Dougie and what's it called?
Long Beach United.
Long Beach United Boxing Club. Right. He's teaching Maddie how to throw a punch because we're going to put Maddie into the Ultimate Fighting Challenge. Right. We're signing him up for the seniors division. But
I'm going against Ronda Rousey.
Anybody before we leave, anybody you want to shout out? We're gonna continue one in the future where we're gonna go. I want to focus on
get this guy on that trip with us. We'll have some.
There's a couple of different tours and stuff I want to focus on. So we're gonna be doing different episodes, like our catalog. We're trying to catalog this podcast thing in a different way. But anybody you want to shout out before we leave, tell the people any last Matt Henderson messages to the world out there.
Shout out to Madball, waving the flag still proudly, doing the thing. I mean, like I said, this band, heart and soul was put into this band, and you guys, I mean, it's great. I'm so happy you guys still do it.
Proud.
You do, and that I get to come and see you guys on a regular basis
and play with us,
and play with you.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that people out there still recognize and respect it.
Yeah, man, I hope.
Shout out to the Hub. Shout out to Matt Henderson.
Shout out to Big Chris helping put on this show today in Long Beach.
Shout out to Chris Powerhouse. Everybody, all our West Coast family for helping us out. Again, support the web page. Look out for us. And to the next time, we out.
Wildcard lives on.
We out.
Your lies, you got me at your own game. Take a trip with me, go see, I will sing. Without one regret, the fate will begin. As the night got deeper, no knowing that fight. And you know the price you'll pay, that price is with your life. Suffering and pain, like nothing in your past. I walk the walk. your last. I see the bitter eyes and the fact still remains. I read between your lines, you got me at your own name. Take a trip with me, forsooth I will sing. Without one regret, the pain will begin. As the night got deeper, you'll go that fight. And you know the price you'll pay, that price with your life. Suffering and pain, like nothing in your past. I walk the walk, and my path will be your last. Path will be your fucking